this mandate at a point in time when there are a lot of multiple and converging crises. And COVID caught the world by surprise. But even now, when we're looking at vaccinations, low-income countries have only about 1.4% of people vaccinated. So, of course, the poor and the most marginalized individuals and communities around the world are the ones most affected at this point in time. And, of course, this is growing inequality across the world. So we entered this period of time when there was already high public and private debt levels. And while we are talking about global and regional debt, let's also talk about individual debt. Let's not forget, right at the bottom, debt is a problem as well in the grassroots. But financial and fiscal controls have been growing for many countries with really big implications. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the October 2021 report, which was prepared by my predecessor, which I'm going to refer to here a little bit. But I'd like to start with an African proverb, which says that poverty without debt is wealth. Debt cripples all of us. And I think it's important to remember that even if people are poor or countries are poor, debt just exacerbates a lot of the spaces that we are in. And wealth at this point in time for very many countries will be being able to survive without debt. And I think it's an important starting point for us to look at. Yun Fei Li, who was my predecessor, said that economic contraction and consequent falls in revenue have been coupled with an unprecedented rise in debt and deficits, bringing developing countries' debt crises into the spotlight. And we've seen that across last year. But there has been an impact, and the biggest problem of the impact that is facing us right now is a choice between servicing creditors or protecting human rights. Do we pay the debt and the interest rates on the debt? Or do we try and set up more robust healthcare systems? Do we try and get more vaccines into developing and low-income countries? These are dilemmas that are facing governments across the world. So there is a continual need to reform the international debt architecture. And unfortunately, the pandemic has shown us that the architecture is not good, and that using a creditor-run system during times of crisis is going to cause huge repercussions across the world. So the mandate works at lining these very two diverse spaces. But it's really important when we look in today's context that we not only highlight and utilize these different spaces, and I'm so glad that there is an offer to continue to work with my office. And I would like to encourage all of you to please take advantage of my presence in the mandate and look into how you can engage with my office more and more. But it is so important that even though we're talking debt, debt is not as simple as it sounds, and I'm sure many of you are aware. There are financial transactions within the debt system. There's illicit financial flows that flow through the debt system. So it is complex, it is large, it is like a spider's web, very often people say. I started to look at issues around human rights related challenges that are being exacerbated by the pandemic. And immediately you can see that the right to health is threatened, work, education, social security and protection, the right to food, freedom of association, but also international cooperation and systems, because it's an international structure. And feel free to throw some more into the conversation. Happy to help unpack them as we go along. But when we started, it was said that the structure is not changing and we have to do something about it. So I'd like to throw a challenge out there. Find out where we're slipping, not where we've fallen. We've fallen and come to a standstill in some spaces, but there are places that we are slipping and we need to stop slipping. So let's keep looking and digging in. I'm so glad we're going to be working with academia and research to get there. But what should collective action be and what it is about? Well, the current practice is fragmented, it's uncoordinated, it's unfair, it's characterized by too little relief that comes too late. And of course, it's leaving countries unable to address debt problems comprehensively. And also, it's in the net of creditors' needs. So there's a huge social cost in the populations of debtor countries. But I also would like to point out that stakeholders, including those in gender, have not been properly addressed in the entire fiscal system, whether it is debt, financial transactions, or illicit financial flows. How the money is collected, how it is spent, the processes on the way are continuing to cause problems, and we need collective action in all of those. But I'd like to leave you with ideas on a way forward. And so part of these will go in October, are already in the October report. But the first thing is prioritize human rights obligations with the link to not only debt, but the other fiscal discussions. But put in place, I think, across all creditors, an immediate debt moratorium. We need large-scale liquidity provisions for interest-free, debt-free, and condition-free financing. And we need to create a multilateral debt workout mechanism. It needs to utilize and implement existing common principles. We need to work more towards debt cancellation, but also in a report that was released earlier this year, we need to reform credit rating agencies. This is a report by the previous mandate holder of my office. We need to continue to reform the IMF quota system and avoid retrogression in human rights. But there's also issues of international cooperation, solidarity funds, and taxes can also be utilized in debt systems to find a way forward. So they say that you only look at the well when the water runs dry. We've not yet run dry, but we're getting very close to it. So it's really important. We're looking at the well that is debt, and we're ensuring that our peoples can survive through this pandemic and beyond in a good way. I'd like to stop there. My contact details are below, and I'd like to encourage all of you to please engage with my office and my mandate. Thank you very much.
To read and sign the Harare Declaration, go to www.afrodat.org/initiatives. Click on Afrodat Conference on Debt and Development, and then read more. And finally, the outcome statement.